The Galactic Council's war room erupted in chittering laughter as the holographic display showed the latest addition to the human fleet. The vessel hung in space like a grotesque metal tumor, its hull scarred and pitted, engines sputtering with the luminous inefficiency of primitive fusion drives. Where other warships gleamed with polished alloys and sleek aerodynamic curves, this monstrosity looked like it had been assembled from scrapyard remnants. "Behold," hissed Admiral Vexthera, her serpentine form coiled around the central command. "Dais, humanity's greatest achievement in naval engineering." Her forked tongue flicked out mockingly as she gestured toward the display. "The inexorable dawn, if you can call that crawling pace dawn." The assembled fleet commanders of 7 species dissolved into fresh waves of amusement. General Kethos, whose crystalline exoskeleton chimed with each hearty laugh, wiped moisture from his compound eyes. "My scouts report it took them 3 standard cycles just to reach the outer marker buoys. At that rate, the war will be over. Before they clear the asteroid belt." Captain Arendale of the Luminary Battle Fleet leaned forward, her ethereal form shimmering with disdain. "Our intelligence suggests they're using some archaic propulsion system, chemical rockets, and fusion burners. How quaint. My fastest interceptors could lap that hulk a dozen times before it completes a single orbit." The human delegation sat in stony silence at the far end of the chamber. Ambassador Corvain Thex maintained his diplomatic composure, though his weathered features betrayed nothing of the storm brewing behind his steel-gray eyes. Beside him, Fleet Commander Winona Carrick studied the tactical displays with the cold patience of a predator. "Perhaps," Vexithera continued, her scales rippling with malicious glee, "we should assign the humans to supply runs. Their vessel seems admirably suited for hauling cargo at a leisurely pace." The mockery stung, but Carrick had endured worse. She rose slowly, her magnetic boots clicking against the deck plating as she approached the holographic display. Every eye in the chamber tracked her movement, waiting for the inevitable human protest, the wounded pride, the desperate justification. Instead, she smiled. "You're absolutely right, Admiral," Carrick said, her voice carrying across the sudden silence. "The inexorable dawn is slow, painfully, embarrassingly slow. A relic from an era when humans had to crawl between stars instead of dancing among them." The alien commanders exchanged glances, their amusement faltering in the face of unexpected agreement. "But there's something you should understand about human engineering," Carrick continued, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls. The display zoomed in on the human vessel's scarred hull, revealing intricate details that had been invisible at a distance. "We don't build things to be fast. We build them to last." The laughter died completely as the true scale of the inexorable dawn became apparent. What they had mistaken for crude construction revealed itself as layered armor plating 3 meters thick. The seemingly inefficient engines were actually redundant systems, backup upon backup, designed to function even after catastrophic damage. "Speed is temporary," Carrick said softly, "but persistence is eternal." Admiral Vexithara's serpentine form straightened, her mirth evaporating as she studied the tactical readouts streaming across her personal display. The human ship wasn't just slow, it was massive beyond anything in the current fleet roster. Its weapon signatures were unlike anything in their databases, and its power core readings suggested capabilities that defied conventional physics. "What exactly are you implying, Commander?" Vexithara asked, her voice now edged with something that might have been concern. Carrick's smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than they had moments before. "I'm not implying anything, Admiral. I'm stating a fact." She gestured toward the display where the inexorable dawn continued its ponderous journey through space, no longer seeming quite so harmless. Humanity has entered the war. 3 weeks later, the laughter had died entirely. The hegemony battle fleet hung in formation around the mining station at Kepler 442b, their ships arranged in the classic hexagonal pattern that had dominated space warfare for centuries. Fast. Attack craft darted between the larger vessels like silver minnows, their pilots drunk on the superiority of their technology. When the first sensor readings arrived, showing the human vessel's approach, the mood was almost festive. "Target acquired," announced Subcommander Ralthis from the bridge of the dreadnought Void Reaper. "Distance, 200,000 kilometers and closing. Estimated time to engagement range, 14 hours. Fleet Admiral Kexandra's mandibles clicked in amusement. 14 hours? By the Void, they're giving us time to have dinner, file reports, and take a nap before the battle begins." But as the hours crawled by, something changed in the mood of the hegemony fleet. The human ship didn't deviate from its course, didn't attempt evasive maneuvers, didn't even respond to their hails. It simply continued its inexorable approach, growing larger and more ominous with each passing hour. "Sir," reported the sensor operator, his voice tight with growing unease. "I'm picking up some unusual readings from the human vessel." "Define unusual," Kexandra commanded. "Energy signature is inconsistent with our projections. The power output is climbing exponentially, but the ship itself shows no signs of acceleration." The Admiral's compound eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." "It's as if they're charging something big." At the 10-hour mark, the first quantum torpedoes screamed toward the inexorable dawn. The hegemony's most advanced weapons, each one capable of cracking a moon in half, streaked across the void in brilliant columns of destructive energy. The human ship made no attempt to evade. It simply absorbed them. The torpedoes struck the scarred hull and vanished, their energy dissipating into the ship's superstructure like raindrops on a mountainside. Where there should have been explosive decompression and cascading system failures, there was only a slight brightening of the already glowing hull plating. "Impossible," whispered Subcommander Ralthis. "Nothing can absorb that kind of punishment." "Fire everything," Kexandra ordered, her voice cracking with the first hint of genuine fear. "All batteries, all torpedoes. Bring that thing down now." The hegemony fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams that could slice through asteroids painted the human ship in brilliant colors. Particle cannons that had leveled cities bombarded its hull. Plasma charges that burned hotter than stellar cores bloomed against its armor. For 20 minutes, the combined firepower of 47 warships hammered the inexorable dawn without pause. When the barrage finally ended, the human ship was still there, still intact, still approaching, and now it was glowing. "Admiral," the sensor operator's voice was barely a whisper. "The human vessel is returning fire." The inexorable dawn had no visible weapons ports, no obvious gun emplacements, no recognizable military hardware. Instead, its entire hull had become the weapon. Energy that had been absorbed from the hegemony barrage now redistributed itself across the ship's surface, building to a crescendo that made the surrounding space shimmer with barely contained power. When it fired, it didn't launch projectiles or beam weapons. It simply pushed. The wave of force that erupted from the human ship struck the hegemony fleet like the fist of an angry god. Ships that had withstood the fury of black holes crumpled like paper. Shields that had turned aside the rage of supernovas flickered and died. The elegant hexagonal formation dissolved into chaos as vessels tumbled end over end, their crews struggling to comprehend what had just happened. The Void Reaper, pride of the hegemony navy, split cleanly in half. Its death scream echoed across, all frequencies as its fusion core went critical, adding its own brief star to the constellation of destruction. In the space of 30 seconds, the most powerful battle fleet in the sector had been reduced to drifting wreckage. The inexorable dawn continued its approach, unchanged and unstoppable. As it passed through the debris field, its hull plates began to cool, returning to their original scarred appearance. It had returned to being just another slow, ungainly, human vessel. But now, nobody was laughing. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in absolute silence. The holographic debris field from Kepler 442b rotated slowly in the center of the chamber, each piece of wreckage tagged and catalogued. 47 ships reduced to scrap in less than a minute. The mathematics of it defied comprehension. "Energy absorption and redistribution," muttered Dr. Slowness, the consortium's chief physicist, her tentacles writhing with agitation as she manipulated the tactical data. "They've somehow created a hull that can store and redirect incoming energy. But the power requirements for such a system are impossible," finished General Kythos, his crystalline form now dulled with worry. "The energy storage capacity alone would require exotic matter configurations that shouldn't exist. Yet here we are, staring at the evidence." Ambassador Thex sat quietly in the observers section, watching the alien leadership grapple with concepts their science couldn't explain. Beside him, Commander Carrick remained impassive, though he caught the slight upturn at the corner of her mouth. "The tactical implications are catastrophic," Admiral Vexithera hissed, her serpentine coils tight with tension. "If the humans can absorb our weapons fire and turn it against us, how do we fight them? How do we even begin to develop countermeasures?" "More importantly," Captain Arundel interjected, her luminous form flickering with anxiety, "how many more ships like this do they have?" The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Intelligence reports had suggested the inexorable Dawn was unique, a prototype or perhaps humanity's only contribution to the war effort. But what if they were wrong? What if this was just the beginning? "I've analyzed the engagement from every possible angle," Dr. Zelneth continued, her calculations sprawling across multiple display screens. "The energy conversion efficiency is nearly perfect. They're not just absorbing our attacks. They're storing them, amplifying them, and returning them with compound interest." General Kythos leaned forward, his compound eyes studying the wreckage. "Patterns. There has to be a limitation. No system is perfect. Energy storage requires mass, cooling systems, structural integrity. Push it hard enough and it has to break." "Does it?" Commander Carrick's voice cut through the discussion like a blade. She rose from her seat, moving with the same deliberate confidence she'd shown weeks earlier. "You're thinking like engineers, calculating limitations, looking for weaknesses, trying to fit our technology into your understanding of physics." She approached the holographic display, her fingers tracing the trajectory of the human vessel through the debris field. "But what if your understanding is incomplete? What if there are forces at work here that your science hasn't discovered yet?" The chamber erupted in indignant chittering and crystalline chiming. The suggestion that human technology could surpass the combined knowledge of 7 species was beyond insulting. It was heretical. "Impossible," Dr. Zelneth declared, her tentacles snapping with agitation. "Humanity has been in space for barely 3 centuries. We've been exploring the galaxy for millennia. The idea that you could develop something beyond our comprehension is demonstrably true," Carrick interrupted, gesturing toward the wreckage. "Unless you have another explanation for what happened at Kepler 442b. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the chamber focused on the human commander, waiting for her to reveal the secret that had just rewritten the rules of warfare. Instead, she smiled again. That same predatory expression that had unsettled them weeks earlier, now infinitely more terrifying. "You want to know our secret?" Carrick asked softly. "It's not our technology. It's not our engineering. It's not even our science." She paused, letting the tension build. "It's our perspective." "Explain," Admiral Vexithera demanded, her voice barely concealing her desperation. "You see the universe as a collection of rules, to be followed," Carrick continued. Physical laws, mathematical constants, immutable principles. When you encounter something that doesn't fit your model, you assume it's impossible. She gestured toward the display again, where the inexorable dawn continued its slow journey through space. But humans, we see rules as suggestions. When we encounter something impossible, we don't dismiss it. We ask ourselves, what if impossible is just another word for undiscovered? The alien commanders exchanged glances, their certainty beginning to crack. They had built their entire understanding of warfare around the assumption that they represented the pinnacle of technological development. The possibility that they might be wrong was almost too terrible to contemplate. The inexorable dawn isn't just a ship, Carrick revealed, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the chamber. It's a proof of concept, a demonstration of what happens when you stop thinking about what can't be done and start focusing on what needs to be done. And what needs to be done? Admiral Vexathera asked, though she already suspected she didn't want to know the answer. Carrick's smile widened, revealing those sharp teeth once more. Victory, by any means necessary. The second engagement came sooner than anyone expected. The hegemony had pulled back their forward fleets, consolidating their forces around the industrial hub of Proxima Centauri. 300 ships formed a defensive sphere around the orbital. Factories, their combined firepower representing enough destructive potential to glass a dozen worlds. If the humans wanted to continue their advance, they would have to go through the largest concentration of military power in the galaxy. The inexorable dawn arrived exactly on schedule. Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, reported the sensor. Operator aboard the command Dreadnought Stellar Dominion. Single vessel, matching previous engagement parameters. Fleet Admiral Zephyr studied the tactical display with growing unease. The human ship approached with the same maddening deliberation. As before, its scarred hull reflecting the light of 3 suns. But something was different this time. The energy readings were wrong. Sub-Commander Veltar, Zephyr commanded. I want a full spectrum analysis of that vessel. Something has changed. The minutes crawled by as the inexorable dawn closed the distance. At 50,000 kilometers, the first differences became apparent. The hull plating that had once appeared uniform now showed subtle variations in color and texture. Sections that had been dark metal now pulsed with internal light, as if the ship itself were breathing. Sir, Veltar reported, his voice tight. With concern, I'm reading massive structural modifications. The vessel's mass has increased by approximately 40% since the last engagement. Impossible, Zephyr muttered. Ships don't just grow. This one did. The tactical implications were staggering. If the human vessel could modify itself between engagements, adapting to new threats and incorporating new capabilities, then every battle would be different. Every strategy would be obsolete before it could be implemented. All batteries, Zephyr ordered. Prepare to fire on my command. If they want to test their upgrades against our full might, we'll oblige them. But this time, the humans didn't. Wait for the first shot. The inexorable dawn simply divided. What had appeared to be a single vessel suddenly revealed itself as a complex amalgamation of interconnected modules. Sections of the hull peeled away like the petals of some metallic flower, each segment bristling with weapons that hadn't been visible moments before. The slow, ungainly ship transformed into a constellation of smaller craft, each one moving with surprising agility. "Multiple contacts!" the sensor operator screamed. 17! No, 23 distinct vessels. They're spreading out across our defensive perimeter. The hegemony fleet scrambled to adjust their targeting systems, but the human modules were already moving. No longer constrained by the limitations of a single massive hull, they darted between the alien ships with predatory grace. Each module retained the energy absorption capabilities of the original vessel, but now they could approach from multiple vectors simultaneously. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded history. the hegemony ships poured fire into the human modules, only to watch their weapons turned against them with devastating efficiency. But this time, the humans weren't content to simply absorb and redirect. They had learned. Each module began to emit a different type of energy discharge. Some fired conventional beams that sliced through armor like tissue paper. Others launched clouds of microscopic projectiles that seemed to eat through hull plating. Still others generated fields of distorted space-time that caused enemy vessels to implode under their own mass. They're adapting, Admiral Zephyr realized with growing horror. Each module is using a different weapon system. They're testing our defenses in real time. The stellar dominion shuddered as 3 human modules converged on its position. The Sub flagship's shields flared and died under the combined assault, its hull beginning to buckle under forces it had never been designed to withstand. In the space of minutes, the pride of the hegemony navy was reduced to a drifting hulk. But the most terrifying moment came when the battle ended. As the last hegemony vessel fell silent, the human modules began to move toward each other. They reconnected with mechanical precision, reassembling into the familiar form of the inexorable dawn. But now it was different, larger, more complex. Sections of destroyed hegemony ships had been incorporated into its structure. Their technology, absorbed and integrated, the human vessel had evolved. "By the void," whispered Subcommander Veltar from his emergency pod, one of the few survivors of the massacre. "It's not just a ship. It's a living thing." The inexorable dawn completed its reconstruction and resumed its slow, inexorable journey deeper into hegemony space. Behind it, the wreckage of 300 ships drifted in the void, a testament to the futility of conventional warfare against an enemy that learned from every engagement. On the bridge of the human vessel, Commander Carrick studied the tactical reports with satisfaction. The ship's artificial intelligence had performed flawlessly, adapting to each new threat and incorporating successful strategies into its core programming. The modular design allowed for rapid reconfiguration, while the energy absorption system had proven even more effective than projected. "Analysis complete," the AI reported in its calm, emotionless voice. "Hegemony defensive capabilities have been fully cataloged. Optimal attack patterns have been identified and incorporated into tactical database." "Excellent," Carrick replied. "Begin preparation for the next phase, and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we're ready for the main offensive." The inexorable dawn continued its journey through space, no longer appearing slow or ungainly. It moved with the confidence of a predator that had finally revealed its true nature. The galaxy's most powerful military force had just learned what it meant to face an enemy that treated warfare as an evolutionary process, and humanity was just getting started. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council had devolved into chaos. Representatives from 12 species shouted over each other in a cacophony of clicks, hisses, and harmonic frequencies. The holographic display showed the aftermath of 7 more engagements, each one more devastating than the last. The human vessel, for it was still somehow singular despite its modular nature, had carved a path of destruction through the heart of civilized space. "It's not possible!" Dr. Zilneth's tentacles writhed in distress as she gestured at the tactical analysis. "The energy requirements for continuous self-modification exceed the output of a small star. Yet they're doing it. They're actually doing it." General Kethos's crystalline form had lost all its luster, his confidence shattered by the mathematics of human warfare. Each engagement shows exponential improvement in their capabilities. They're not just adapting, they're evolving at a rate that defies biological and technological precedent. "Because you're still thinking about this wrong," Commander Carrick interjected from her position at the chamber's edge. She had been silent throughout the emergency session, watching the alien leadership struggle with concepts that remained beyond their comprehension. "Then enlighten us," Admiral Vexthera hissed, her serpentine form coiled tight with barely contained fury. "Tell us how a single ship can defeat entire fleets." Explain how your technology violates every known law of physics. Carrick approached the central display, her movements deliberate and controlled. The wreckage of the latest engagement rotated. Slowly in the holographic field, the remnants of the Consortium's Third Fleet, obliterated in under an hour by what the aliens still insisted on calling a single vessel. "You keep referring to the inexorable Dawn as a ship," she began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "But that's not what it is. It never was." The alien representatives fell silent, their attention focused entirely on the human commander. "What you're seeing isn't a vessel with an advanced computer system. It's not even a ship with sophisticated artificial intelligence." Carrick paused, letting the implications sink in. "It's a civilization." The silence that followed was profound. Dr. Zelneth's tentacles went rigid with shock. General Kithos's crystalline structure actually cracked, producing a sound like breaking glass. Admiral Vexithara's serpentine form went completely still. "Impossible," whispered Captain Arundale, her luminous form flickering with disbelief. No civilization could exist within the confines of a single vessel. The resource requirements alone would be manageable, Carrick continued, if you stopped thinking in terms of conventional space and started considering dimensional engineering. The inexorable Dawn isn't big because it needs to be. It's big because it contains an entire pocket universe. She gestured toward the display, and the image changed to show technical schematics that made no sense to the alien observers. Dimensional matrices, space-time distortion fields, and energy patterns that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. Inside that scarred hull, Carrick explained, is a complete ecosystem. Cities, factories, research facilities, entire populations dedicated to the singular purpose of warfare. When you attack the inexorable Dawn, you're not fighting a ship. You're fighting a species. The implications were staggering. The aliens had been preparing for naval combat, but the humans had brought something else entirely, a self-contained civilization optimized for destruction. The modular design you observed isn't mechanical, Carrick continued relentlessly. It's biological. Each module contains specialized populations, warriors, engineers, scientists, tacticians. When they separate, they're not deploying weapons systems. They're launching entire military cultures. Dr. Zelneth's voice was barely a whisper. The energy absorption, the adaptation. Natural selection in real time, Carrick confirmed. Each engagement provides data that gets processed by millions of minds simultaneously. Failed strategies are discarded, successful ones are refined and enhanced. The inexorable Dawn doesn't just learn from combat, it evolves through it. "But why?" Admiral Vexithara asked, her voice hollow with dawning horror. "Why go to such extremes? Why create such a monstrosity?" Carrick's expression hardened, and for the first time since the war began, the aliens saw something approaching. Genuine emotion on a human face. "Because you made it necessary." The chamber erupted in protests and denials, but Carrick continued without pause. "Humanity spent 3 centuries trying to find our place in the galactic community. We offered our resources, our knowledge, our friendship. We asked only to be treated as equals." Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. "Instead, you laughed at us. You dismissed us as primitives. You denied us representation in the council. You treated us as subjects rather than citizens." "That's not," General Kythos began, but Carrick cut him off with a gesture. "When the war started, you assigned us to supply runs. You kept us away from the real fighting because you didn't trust our capabilities. You saw us as useful only for carrying cargo and providing raw materials." She smiled, that predatory smile that had become so familiar. "So we gave you exactly what you asked for." The display changed again, showing the interior of the inexorable Dawn. Vast manufacturing complexes stretching beyond the horizon. Populations numbering in the billions. Research facilities that would have been impressive on any planet, all contained within the impossible space of a single vessel. The inexorable Dawn is our supply ship, Carrick revealed. It carries everything we need to wage war: weapons, ammunition, personnel, industrial capacity, scientific advancement. Everything required to fight a campaign that could last centuries. One ship, General Kythos whispered. One ship contains all of that? One ship, Carrick confirmed. And we have 17 more in production. The alien representatives stared at the display in stunned silence. The mathematics of it were impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. Humanity had not just joined the war. They had revolutionized it. They had created weapons that transcended the boundaries between technology and biology, between individual and collective, between possible and impossible. What do you want? Admiral Vexathera asked finally, her voice breaking with the weight of inevitable defeat. Carrick's smile widened, revealing those sharp teeth one final time. What we've always wanted, she replied. Respect. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the Galactic Council convened for the first time in its new configuration. The chamber itself had been redesigned, its hierarchical seating arrangement replaced with a circular configuration that placed all representatives on equal footing. At the center of the circle, where the holographic displays had once shown tactical data and battle analyses, now stood a simple podium. Commander Carrick approached the podium with the same deliberate confidence she had always displayed. But something had changed. The predatory edge was gone, replaced by the calm assurance of someone who no longer needed to prove anything. Behind her, the observation deck held representatives from 18 species, the original 7, plus 11, others who had requested admission to the Council since humanity's demonstration of power. The war is over, she announced, her words carrying across the chamber without the aid of amplification systems. All hostile actions have ceased. All territorial disputes have been resolved. All outstanding conflicts have been settled. The silence that followed was not the stunned quiet of shock, but the contemplative pause of minds processing a new reality. The galaxy had been at war for over a century, with conflicts flaring and dying across thousands of systems. The idea that it could simply end seemed almost incomprehensible. The inexorable Dawn and her sister ships have been recalled to Sol system, Carrick continued. They will remain there as a deterrent against future aggression, but they will not be deployed unless the security of the Council is threatened. Admiral Vexathera, her serpentine form now showing signs of advanced age, raised her head. What assurance do we have that humanity will honor this agreement? Your weapons are beyond anything we can counter. You could demand anything, and we would be powerless to refuse. You're right, Carrick acknowledged. We could, but that's not what we want. She gestured toward the circular arrangement of seats. For 3 centuries, humanity sought a place at this table, not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as partners. We wanted to contribute to the galactic community, to share in its achievements and responsibilities. And now? General Kythos asked, his crystalline form still bearing the cracks from that first devastating revelation. Now we have that place, Carrick replied. The Council has voted to restructure itself as a true representative body. Every species has an equal voice. Every decision requires consensus. Every member has the right to be heard. Dr. Zylneth's tentacles writhed with barely contained curiosity. But the power imbalance remains. Your ships are tools. Carrick interrupted gently. Powerful tools, yes, but tools nonetheless. The real power lies in what we do with them. She paused, scanning the faces of the alien representatives. We choose to use that power to protect the peace we've all worked to build. The questions that followed were predictable. How could the galaxy trust a species that had hidden such devastating capabilities? What guarantees existed that humanity wouldn't change its mind? How could the other species feel secure knowing that 18 ships existed that could end their civilizations with ease? Carrick answered each question with patience and precision. Yes, humanity had concealed their true capabilities, but only because they had been denied the chance to demonstrate them peacefully. Yes, the power imbalance was real, but power without trust was meaningless. Yes, the other species would have to live with the knowledge of humanity's weapons, but they would also benefit from humanity's protection. The universe is vast, she concluded, and we've only explored a tiny fraction of it. There are threats out there that we haven't even imagined yet. Species that might not be interested in negotiation or peaceful coexistence. When those threats emerge, and they will emerge, you'll be grateful that humanity chose to build weapons instead of monuments. The formal vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council was reconstituted as the Galactic Federation, with humanity taking its place as both guardian and member. The inexorable Dawn and her sister ships would serve as the Federation's protective fleet, their impossible capabilities dedicated to preserving the peace that had been so hard won. As the session concluded and the representatives began to file out, Admiral Vexathara approached the podium where Carrick still stood. "I have to ask," the Serpentine Admiral said, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "Was it worth it? All the destruction, all the fear, all the lives lost?" Carrick considered the question for a long moment before answering. "You want to know if I regret what we did? If I think we went too far?" She shook her head slowly. "The only thing I regret is that it was necessary at all. And now? Now we build something better. Together." Vexathara nodded and turned to leave, but Carrick's voice stopped her. "Admiral, there's something else you should know." The human commander's expression was serious but not threatening. "The 18 ships we have in production, they're not weapons." "What?" "They're colony ships, exploration vessels, research platforms. We're finally ready to take our place in the galaxy, and we intend to do it as builders, not destroyers, as..." Vexathara departed. Carrick remained at the podium, looking out at the empty chamber that would soon be filled with the voices of a dozen species working together toward a common future. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Outside, in the depths of space, the inexorable Dawn continued its slow, inexorable journey home. Its hull no longer glowed with absorbed energy, its modular sections locked together in peaceful configuration. Inside its impossible interior, billions of humans went about their daily lives, no longer warriors but citizens of a galaxy that had finally accepted them as equals. The laughter had stopped long ago. In its place was something far more valuable: respect, earned through strength but tempered by wisdom. Humanity had proven they could destroy their enemies. Now came the harder task of proving they could build something worth protecting. The galaxy would never be the same. And perhaps, for the first time in centuries, that was exactly what it needed.